In this video, we're going to look at the most common problems that people encounter when loops are controlled by a sensor. Absolutely the first thing that you should do when you discover that you're having a problem with anything that involves sensors is to check your ports. Check what port your program expects the sensor to be plugged into and what port your sensor is actually plugged into. Do they match? Here's a program that we wrote for an earlier lesson. The robot's going to keep moving and play a tune until we detect an object that's less than 25 centimeters away from the robot, and then we will stop and say object detected. So we start by turning the motors on, and then we have our loop that goes until the ultrasonic sensor measures in centimeters less than 25 centimeters. And in our loop, we've got 3 different notes playing for 1/10 of a second each. I'm actually going to change this 25 centimeters to, sorry, I'm on the pan tool. I'm going to switch to the select tool. I'm going to change the 25 centimeters to 31 centimeters because I brought a ruler with me today that's around 31 centimeters long. Okay, let me download this and let's just run it one time to remind ourselves what this does. Okay, let's give it a shot. Pretty good. Now, for that example we did before, I had each note play for a very short time, just 1/10 of a second. What if we change that to 1 full second per note? So let me change that to 1 second. And change this one to 1 second, and change this one to 1 second. Let me hook up my robot and download, and then we'll run it again and see what happens. I'm going to run this twice in a row to make a point. Here's the first go. Yeah, that's pretty good. And let's do it again. That wasn't so good. Okay, so in the first demo, the robot stopped at around 31 centimeters. But in the second demo, it moved a lot further. Do you understand why that happened? Let's trace our program to find out. Here's a copy of our code. To show you exactly why the robot behaved in the way it did, it'll help us to keep track of what the ultrasonic sensor reading is each step of the way. Note that the EV3 only pays attention to that reading at the end of the loop, but for our own purposes, let's keep an eye on it. Okay, let's suppose that when we begin the program, there's actually an object at around 65 centimeters in front of the robot. We start the program, and this first block tells us to turn on the power to the motors. So the EV3 does that and then continues on to the next block. We arrive at the entrance to the loop, and it says, "Welcome, come in." Note that all of the steps that have happened so far are processed so quickly that we should assume that we haven't really moved much yet, if at all. So we go into the loop. Our motors are running when we arrive at that first sound block and play the note for a second. So by the time we arrive at the second note, let's say we're 10 centimeters closer to the obstacle. So now it's only 55 centimeters away. We continue to move while we play the next note for 1 second. Let's suppose we're 45 centimeters away from the obstacle by the time we begin playing the third note. We're still moving as we reach the end of the loop. So maybe at this point the obstacle is 35 centimeters away. Now we have to check whether the ultrasonic sensor detects that there's an object less than 31 centimeters away. We're actually 35 centimeters away, so the loop will say, "Do it again." That sonar check took virtually no time, so we're probably still about 35 centimeters away from the obstacle as we play this note. And perhaps when we start playing this note, we're 25 centimeters away. But we're inside the loop now, so there's no check of the distance at this point. We just continue moving and playing our note. Now we're only 15 centimeters away, but still no check, so keep moving and playing. Finally, we reach the end of the loop, and it's time to check the ultrasonic sensor. Well, we're definitely much closer than 31 centimeters away from the obstacle, so the loop tells us that it's time to exit. The EV3 stops its motors. Note that we're only around 5 centimeters away from the obstacle at this point. The EV3 continues through the next 2 sound blocks, one after the other, saying object, and then detected, and then we're finished the program.